Tonight, we are witnessing a strike that rewrites the rules of modern warfare. Ukraine did not simply attack a Russian warship. It carried out a precise and ruthless operation using sea drones. In just minutes, a powerful symbol of Russian naval strength was taken apart. This was not only an attack, it was the proof of a naval idea born more than 150 years ago. And it was all captured on video for the world to see. Laying just after midnight on the 1st of February 2024, the Black Sea looked calm. Near the occupied coast of Crimea, in the waters of Lake Donuzalov, a Russian missile corvette was on patrol. The ship was the Ivanovets. For its crew, this was another routine night in hostile waters. They were aboard a vessel with a feared reputation, a Molnia-class corvette known in NATO as a Tarantul. It displaced more than 1,200 tons. It carried 4 powerful Mosquet anti-ship missiles, weapons designed to destroy even aircraft carriers. This ship represented an old doctrine of naval power. Strength measured in steel speed and explosive force, a floating symbol of conventional military thinking. But another kind of power was already moving toward it. Hidden in the darkness, a group of Ukrainian unmanned surface vessels skimmed across the water. These sea drones were not ships in the traditional sense. They were small, fast, and low profile, built from materials that made them almost invisible to radar. They were guided using commercial technology. Starlink satellites allowed real-time control from far away. GPS-handled navigation. Cameras guided the final attack. Each drone carried hundreds of kilograms of military explosives shaped to tear through steel and explode inside. Each one cost around $250,000. The entire swarm likely cost less than a single missile on the Russian ship. Some editors, Manja, the crew of the Ivanovets, likely had no warning. At around 054, the night vision footage from a drone shows a fast wake cutting through the dark. It slams into the starboard side of the ship. A bright flash fills the screen. The ship shudders violently. This first hit was not meant to sink it. It was meant to cripple it. The strike likely targeted the engine spaces, flooding compartments, killing propulsion, turning a hunter into a helpless target. What followed was a calculated and merciless 9-minute assault. Footage later released by Ukrainian military intelligence shows the damaged ship listing heavily and unable to move. The drones moved with terrifying coordination. One struck the port's stern. Another drove directly into the hole created by the first blast, maximizing destruction inside the hull. The crew of 40 can be seen as tiny figures running across the deck. They could do nothing. The ship missiles were useless against such small targets. The close-in guns could not track multiple fast drones coming from different directions in the dark. The final strike was devastating. A drone slammed into the bow at high speed. The explosion lit up the night vision feed. It likely hit fuel or missiles stored forward. That blast sealed the ship fate. Within minutes, the Ivanovets rolled past 90 degrees. Its bow rose into the air like a marker of its own grave. Then it slid beneath the Black Sea. From first impact to sinking, less than 15 minutes passed. Ukrainian intelligence later stated that Russian rescue teams found no survivors. The location of the strike carried a powerful message. This was not open ocean combat. This attack happened inside Lake Donuzalov, a narrow bay on the Crimean coast. Territory Russia has occupied and heavily fortified since 2014. This was supposed to be a safe zone, a protected backyard. Ukraine's message was clear. There are no safe waters anymore. The numbers behind the attack were brutal. Ukraine spent only a few $1 million on expendable drones. In return, Russia lost a warship worth $60 to $70 million. It lost an entire missile loadout. And it lost the experience of a trained crew that cannot be replaced. Inside Russia, the reaction exposed deep cracks. The Defense Ministry released a delayed and carefully worded statement. It said the ship was lost due to damage received in combat, nothing more. But the nationalist military bloggers on Telegram reacted with fury. They could not hide this loss. The video evidence was undeniable. They called it a disgrace. They demanded punishment for Black Sea Fleet commanders. It revealed a navy struggling to adapt to a war it no longer understood. The sinking of the Ivanovets was not an isolated event. It was part of a relentless Ukrainian campaign. First came the sinking of the flagship Moskva in April 2022. That shattered the myth of Russian naval invincibility. Then came the destruction of the landing ship Novocherkassk in port in December 2023. That proved even docked ships were not safe. The Ivanovets completed this deadly trilogy. It showed that Russian warships were vulnerable even while patrolling. Ukraine achieved something extraordinary. A country with almost no traditional navy was pushing the Russian surface fleet out of the Western Black Sea. It was done through innovation, courage, and technology. This created a form of sea denial. Russian ships were forced to retreat. Ukraine gained breathing space. It helped reopen a fragile grain export corridor that weakened Russian economic pressure and stabilized global food markets. The shockwaves traveled far beyond the Black Sea. Naval headquarters around the world took notice. This was the first confirmed sinking of an active warship by a swarm of unmanned surface vessels. The footage removed all doubt. Overnight drone threats stopped being theory. They became urgent budget problems and procurement nightmares. A fundamental question was forced into the open. What does naval power really mean now? Historians quickly saw the deeper significance. Ukraine was applying an old idea with modern tools. In the late 19th century, the French Jean Ecole argued that weaker navies should swarm powerful ships with small, fast attackers. The idea was sound, but the technology was never ready. Guidance range and coordination always fell short. The Ukrainian Sea Drone changed that. Satellite-controlled digital navigation and cheap explosives made the theory real. This was not just a new weapon. It was the validation of a 150-year-old strategic concept. Banned geography played a deadly role. Lake Donoslav acted like a trap. Once the Ivanovets was disabled, it had nowhere to maneuver. Analysts believe the drones used smart evasion tactics. They chased gunfire splashes. They stayed where the gunners had just aimed, not where they were aiming next. In open water, the ship might have survived. Inside the bay, it had no chance. The lesson was alarming. Modern warships are built for open seas and peer combat. They are not designed to survive agile drone swarms in tight coastal spaces. For Russia, the consequences were immediate and humiliating. The Black Sea Fleet, once a symbol of imperial and Soviet power, was being hollowed out by machines, not by another navy. Satellite images in the weeks that followed showed Russian warships leaving Sevastopol. They moved east to ports like Novorossiysk. The Ivanovets was the final proof they needed. Staying was too dangerous. Ukraine had forced a retreat without boarding a single enemy ship. A de facto blockade had been imposed on Russian surface forces in the Western Black Sea. Ukrainian innovation did not slow down. The drones used in February 2024 were only a step along the path. Development moved at wartime speed. New versions quickly appeared. These were no longer simple suicide boats. Some became multi-role platforms. Robotic motherships carrying FPV quadcopter drones inside sealed bays. In one daring operation, these drones approached Russian-controlled gas platforms. They launched flying drones to disable sensors. Then they placed explosives directly on the platform legs. This was combined arms warfare carried out by machines. Across the world, naval planners felt the pressure. In Washington, Beijing, London, and Tokyo, the same math caused anxiety. A drone costing $250,000 could destroy or cripple a ship worth $1 billion. Defending against this threat is complex and expensive. It requires layered sensors, electronic warfare, laser weapons, and entirely new tactics. Even the United States Navy faces this challenge. Its Arleigh Burke destroyers dominate long-range missile combat. But their close-range defenses are limited against dense swarms. Smaller ships lack the firepower to respond. The age of the invulnerable capital ship was over. Survival now depends on fragile systems and constant adaptation. Russia's response followed two paths: quiet adaptation and loud display. Strategically, Moscow shifted away from dreams of aircraft carrier dominance. The troubled carrier Admiral Kuznetsov became a symbol of that fading ambition. Investment moved towards submarines, smaller missile ships, and drone programs. The focus became defense and long-range strikes rather than sea control. At the same time, Russia turned to spectacle. In September 2024, President Putin launched the Ocean 2024 naval exercises. They were smaller than Soviet-era drills. They relied heavily on light vessels, but they sent a political signal. Chinese warships participated. It showed a deepening partnership against Western pressure. The parade was the surface image. Beneath it lay empty dry docks and sunken ships like the Ivanovets. The true legacy of the Ivanovets is not the end of warships, it is the end of their unquestioned dominance. Naval power is no longer concentrated in a few massive platforms. It has become distributed, cheap, and adaptable. Ukrainian operators sitting in hidden bunkers did more than win a battle. They rewrote doctrine. They proved ingenuity can be a strategic weapon, that courage can travel through satellite links, and that the future of naval warfare belongs not only to those with the biggest budgets, but to those with the fastest minds and the smartest code. The Ivanovets now rests in the mud, a relic of an older age. Above it, the water is calm. And the world has changed.